The fight for Hollow Creek Ranch. The sun was just cresting over the rolling hills of Hollow Creek, Texas, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. I stood on my porch, a chipped ceramic mug of black coffee warming my hands, breathing in the quiet of my 12-acre ranch. At 57, I'd earned this peace. After 20 years in the Army and the loss of my wife, Ellen, 6 years ago, this land was my sanctuary. My daughter, Sarah, was off at college, but she'd come back to help with the goats and chickens when she could. My neighbor, Tom, a grizzled ex-Marine, lived a half-mile down the dirt road with his wife, Linda. Life was simple, steady, until the strangers came. It started with a woman in a crisp blazer and heels, striding across my pasture like she owned it. She was leading a young couple, pointing at my barn with a saleswoman's smile. I set my coffee down and shouted, "Hey, this is private property. Get off my land." The woman waved at me like I was some friendly farmer, then kept walking. That's when I saw the "for sale" sign in her hand. She wasn't leaving, she was hammering it into my soil. Fury surged through me. I marched across the field, my boots kicking up dust, heart pounding so loud I thought it'd scare my chickens. When I reached them, the couple looked confused, but the realtor, with her polished nails and cold smile, said something that stopped me dead. "This lot's part of the Silver Pines HOA now. It's been annexed. I can sell it." Annexed? I'd owned this ranch free and clear for 15 years. No one could just take it. "You're trespassing," I growled, yanking the sign out of the ground. "I don't consent to anyone selling my land." She smirked. "That's for the HOA board to settle, sir. Not you." I noticed 3 more signs near my fence, each reading, "Available lot, Silver Pines HOA Realty Team. Call Vivian for a tour." My name wasn't on a single one. My phone buzzed as I stood there, steam practically rising from my ears. It was Tom. "Hey, Mike, there's a flyer going around saying your ranch is part of the Silver Pines expansion. Thought you knew." My stomach twisted. This wasn't just one pushy realtor, it was a takeover. Let me take you back to how this started. I'm Mike Larson, retired Army, mid-50s, living just outside Austin on this ranch I built with my own hands. It's got a barn, a pond, and a view of the hills that Ellen loved. After she passed, I moved here for the quiet, to heal and keep her memory close. Sarah helps when she's home, and Tom and Linda are the kind of neighbors you can count on. For years, it was just us and the open land. Then Silver Pines sprouted up a mile away, a cookie-cutter neighborhood of shiny houses, identical SUVs, and kids in matching soccer uniforms. HOA life. Not my thing. At first, it didn't bother me. But then they built a sidewalk that stopped right at my property line. Soon, people were walking their dogs near my fence, some letting their kids slip under to pet my goats. I didn't mind much until someone left my gate open, and my animals wandered onto the road. I put up a "no trespassing" sign. It was gone the next day. Tom warned me. "These HOA folks think they own everything they see. Watch yourself." He wasn't wrong. Flyers started showing up in my mailbox, advertising future ranch lots, with a sketch of a barn that looked suspiciously like mine. I brushed it off as a mistake. Then one evening, while fixing my fence, I caught a guy in a suit snapping photos with a clipboard. "What are you doing?" I asked. He said he was from the Silver Pines HOA planning department, with a permit to survey expansion lots. I snapped. "Whose permit?" "I didn't sign anything." He just smiled and said, "The HOA board did." I called the county office the next morning. No record of zoning changes. My land was still private. So who gave them the idea they could claim it? A few days later, things got worse. 3 women in real estate jackets rolled up in an SUV, taking pictures of my barn, my porch, even my rusty old Ford truck. One waved and said, "You'll want to mow those weeds before showings." Buyers love curb appeal. I shouted, "This ain't for sale." They laughed and drove off. Then came the social media posts. Instagram pages for Silver Pines Ranch Estates showed my barn, my pond, my truck, captioned, "Luxury ranch living, coming soon." Tom and I sat on my porch, scrolling through them. He shook his head. "Mike, you need a lawyer. This isn't trespassing, Anna Marie, it's theft." Before I could act, I came home from the feed store to find a couple walking out of my barn, brochure in hand. "It's better than the listing photos," the woman said. I roared, "What are you doing here?" The man blinked. Vivian said the gate was open. "We're interested in lot 42A. I escorted them to their car, explaining they'd been lied to. My land wasn't for sale. That night, a sign was nailed to my gate. Open house Sunday. Bring your boots. It listed my ranch for $1.4 million, with Vivian's name at the bottom. I drove to the Silver Pines HOA office the next morning, demanding to see Vivian. The receptionist said she'd be back by noon. I waited, fuming. When she walked in, a tall woman in a navy suit, all confident she knew who I was. "You're stealing my land," I said. She didn't flinch. "It's part of our expansion plan. You'll be compensated." I leaned in. "You're trespassing. I don't consent. Stay off my ranch, or I'm calling the sheriff." She handed me a cease and desist letter, accusing me of interfering with their business. As I left, I saw 3 cars parked in my pasture. Another open house. I stormed across the field, shouting, "This is private property." A group of well-dressed folks sipped water near my barn, one guy admiring my windmill for its aesthetic. Vivian was there, clipboard in hand. "Clint, this is a misunderstanding. Your land's in our community plan. These folks have a right to view it." I yanked another sign from the ground. "I never signed anything. This is fraud." She handed me a document, claiming a soft annexation request gave them showing rights. At the bottom was a forged signature, mine, but not mine. I snapped, "This is fake." She shrugged. "That's for the courts." A buyer asked if I was off-site. I said, "I'm the owner, and no one has permission to be here." Vivian smiled. "This won't end how you think, Mike." That night, Tom and I pored over my deed, tax forms, everything. No liens, no co-signers. My land was mine. Tom handed me a beer. "They forged your signature. That's a crime." I nodded. "But they'll keep coming until I prove it." The next morning, I drove to the sheriff's office, my hands still shaking from the forged document Vivian had waved in my face. Sheriff Bennett, a no-nonsense man in his 60s who'd known me since I moved to Hollow Creek, listened as I laid out the story. The trespassers, the signs, the fake signature. I handed him the annexation letter. He squinted at it, his jaw tightening. "This ain't your signature, Mike. And this soft annexation nonsense? It's a legal gray area. But forgery? That's a crime." He promised to open an investigation, but warned me. HOAs like Silver Pines have deep pockets and slick lawyers. This won't be quick. I left feeling a flicker of hope, thinking maybe the law would scare them off. I was wrong. 3 days later, while feeding my goats near the stables, I heard a sharp crack, like wood splintering. I ran toward the sound and stopped cold. My front gate, the heavy oak one I'd built with Ellen, was torn off its hinges, lying in the dirt like a wounded animal. Tire tracks cut through the gravel, leading to a group of workers in neon vests staking ropes along my fence line. "Hey," I shouted, storming toward them. "What are you doing?" A wiry guy with a clipboard glanced up. "Land prep. Surveying for the Silver Pines Trail extension." My blood boiled. "Who approved this?" He pointed to a folder clipped to their truck. Inside was a permit marked "Temporary Work Authorization, Silver Pines HOA." At the bottom, another forged signature. Mine. "This is fake." I snapped, holding it up. "You're on private property. You've got 10 seconds to leave, or I'm calling the sheriff." The guy mumbled, "We're just doing our job," but they packed up and drove off. I stood there, gripping the broken gate, realizing this wasn't just about signs anymore. They were moving in. The next morning, the rumble of heavy machinery woke me before dawn. I stepped out of the barn, feed bucket in hand, and nearly dropped it. A yellow bulldozer was crawling down my driveway, followed by a flatbed loaded with lumber and concrete blocks. A black SUV with Silver Pines HOA magnets led the way like it was directing a parade. I sprinted toward the road, waving my arms. The bulldozer slowed, but the SUV kept coming. Vivian stepped out, heels sinking into the dirt, looking at me like I was a minor inconvenience. "Turn around now," I yelled. She smiled, all teeth. "Good morning, Mike. Construction for the Silver Pines Welcome Center starts today. We gave proper notice." I stepped closer. "You gave nothing. This is my land." I turned to the bulldozer driver. "You touch my property, and I'll file trespass charges so fast you'll regret it." The driver killed the engine, looking nervous. Vivian sighed. "Your parcel's part of our expansion overlay. The documents are filed. The Welcome Center replaces your house, but you'll be compensated." "My house." I barked, "Get off my land." Just then, Sheriff Bennett's cruiser rolled up, lights flashing. He stepped out, eyeing the bulldozer, the lumber, Vivian. Somebody explain what's going on, he growled. Vivian launched into her spiel. Sheriff, we're proceeding under the annexation petition filed last month. All construction is approved. Bennett raised an eyebrow. Did Mike sign anything? She nodded confidently. He did. I snapped. Do I look like I signed that? Bennett flipped through her folder, frowning. This ain't legal. It's a petition, not notarized. Until I see a deed transfer, this land's Mike's. Vivian's smile faltered. This delay could cost us thousands. Bennett cut her off. Not my problem. Pack it up. Within minutes, the convoy was gone. Bennett shook his head. They're getting bold, Mike. I nodded. And dangerous. He sighed. Get a lawyer. A good one. That evening, Sarah came home from college. Her face pale as she showed me a viral Facebook post. My ranch listed as secure your dream lot before Silver Pines Phase 1 sells out. She was furious. Dad, this is illegal. You have to sue. I muttered. I'm trying, but they're moving faster than I can. Sarah and I walked the property, documenting everything. Flyers stapled to fence posts, survey marks spray-painted near the pond, ruts where the bulldozer had torn up my field. We drafted a cease and desist letter and nailed laminated, no trespassing signs every 20 feet along the fence. Sarah set up trail cams near the gate and barn. By morning, I felt a sliver of control until I checked the footage. At 2:14 a.m., headlights flashed. 3 men in dark jackets and hats stepped out of a pickup, flashlights sweeping my land. One held a clipboard. They planted pink survey flags, smaller than the usual markers, then vanished. Sarah watched the footage, her hand over her mouth. They're planning something, Dad. I nodded. And they don't want witnesses. We upped our game. Sarah called a local journalist, Emma Carter, from the Austin Chronicle, known for exposing land scams. Emma reviewed our evidence-forged documents, videos, photos, and said, this could be front-page news if we catch them in the act. I invited her to stay at the ranch for the weekend. We hid her car, kept her cameras out of sight, and waited. The first 2 nights were quiet. On the third, the cameras caught something chilling. 2 men spray-painted my barn with red letters. Pines Phase 1, remove. They carried blueprints, one saying, Vivian wants it cleared by Friday. Sarah's voice trembled. They're going to destroy our home. I didn't sleep that night, my shotgun across my lap. The image of those men burned into my mind. This wasn't trespassing anymore. It was war. The next morning, I decided this fight wasn't just about my ranch, it was about Ellen's dream, Sarah's childhood, my years of sweat. I called Emma. They marked the barn, I said. They're coming to tear it down. She didn't hesitate. I'm on my way. By noon, she'd set up hidden dash cams in parked cars and a drone to patrol the property line. Then she called the HOA, posing as a buyer. On speakerphone, a woman named Carla chirped, tours are Friday through Sunday. The barn's cleared by Thursday, foundations poured next month. Emma looked at me. They're talking like it's already theirs. I clenched my fists. It ain't. Then we heard tires on gravel. 2 black trucks pulled up. One man unloaded measuring tools and spray paint. I grabbed my phone, recording. You're on private property. Leave. The taller one smirked. This is lot 42A. Pre-demo marking. I stepped forward. This is my barn. Touch it, and I'll have the sheriff and media here to bury you. The second guy hesitated. Are you Mike Larson? I nodded. He turned to his buddy. This land wasn't signed over. We shouldn't be here. The tall guy shrugged. Vivian said do it anyway. Emma stepped out, camera rolling. I'm Emma Carter, Austin Chronicle. Want to go on record before you're named in a trespass report? They bolted, paint cans in hand. Emma grinned. With this footage, you're about to blow Silver Pines wide open. The footage Emma captured was like a grenade lobbed into the heart of Silver Pine's scheme. By Tuesday morning, she published her story in the Austin Chronicle. HOA accused of land theft and forgery in shocking ranch scandal. It included screenshots of the forged annexation letter, photos of Vivian's trespassing realtors, and the video of the 2 men admitting they were acting on her orders despite knowing the land wasn't legally theirs. Within hours, the article spread like wildfire across social media, Facebook, Reddit, local news sites. My phone buzzed nonstop with notifications from strangers offering support. Sheriff Bennett called to say his office had opened a criminal investigation. I thought maybe, just maybe, this would slow them down. I was wrong. Wednesday morning, Sarah burst into the barn, Her face flushed. Dad, they're back. I ran outside and saw a white utility truck at the far end of my field. Workers unrolling orange construction fencing like they were claiming a war zone. My heart sank, but I wasn't alone this time. Tom was already there, marching toward them with a red folder in hand. He'd spent the night digging through county records and had copies of my deed, clear as day. You see this? Tom barked, holding up the papers. Certified record from Travis County. This land belongs to Mike Larson. Touch that fence, and you're breaking state law. The workers glanced between Tom and the documents, confused. Then Tom added, "Oh, and there's a drone watching you. Your faces are probably on the news already." That did it. They packed up and sped off. Sarah hugged Tom. "You're a lifesaver." But we all knew it was temporary. That afternoon, a package arrived in my mailbox, no return address. Inside was a manila folder with a single document. Notice of pending property lien, Silver Pines HOA versus Mike Larson. They claimed I owed $84,000 in back dues for services I never received, for a membership I never joined. They accused me of disrupting HOA expansion efforts. Sarah grabbed the folder, her voice shaking. "They're trying to bankrupt us to take the land." I called Sheriff Bennett. He arrived within the hour, flipping through the lien notice. "This is dirty," he said. "Filed with a private collections firm tied to the HOA. If you don't fight it legally, they'll get a judge to rule in their favor by default." Sarah asked, "How fast can we fight it?" Bennett looked grim. "You need a pit bull lawyer, or they'll bury you in paperwork." I stared out at my pasture, the one I'd mowed, tilled, and walked every morning for 15 years. "I'm not letting them take this," I said. The next morning, Emma showed up with a grin. "I found her," she said. "The lawyer you need." Her name was Rachel Holt, a property rights attorney who'd made headlines years ago for saving a farmer's orchard from a similar HOA land grab. Rachel reviewed our evidence, the forged signature, the lien, the drone footage, and didn't mince words. "This is one of the boldest land grabs I've seen. We'll file to dismiss the lien by Friday and hit them with our own cease and desist, but we need more than paperwork. We need proof of intent." Sarah leaned forward. "What kind?" Rachel listed it off. Emails, recordings, internal documents showing Vivian and the HOA knew this land wasn't theirs and pushed forward anyway. Tom cracked his knuckles. "I might know where to get that. There's a security guy at the HOA clubhouse, ex-Army. We served together. His name's Jake Miller. He's not happy with what they're doing." We were forming a plan when my phone buzzed a live alert from the drone camera. A dozen men in hard hats and steel-toed boots were marching across my field toward the barn, hauling jackhammers, toolboxes, and a cement mixer. A white van unloaded concrete poles and markers. They weren't just trespassing, they were ready to build. I grabbed my keys. "They're back, and they brought a construction crew." Sarah called Emma. Tom hopped in his truck with me, and we tore down the gravel road. When we pulled up, 15 men were setting up equipment, measuring my pasture, one guy even setting up a lunch station under my oak tree. I stormed toward the man with the clipboard. "What the hell are you doing?" He didn't blink. "Northridge Construction, contracted by Silver Pines HOA for Phase 1. Orders to level the barn and prep for the Welcome Center parking lot." I snapped, "That barn's mine." He handed me another permit, same forged signature, stamped with approved fast-track code A1. Tom snatched it. "Fast track this, you snake." 2 workers headed for the barn with jackhammers. I ran ahead, planting myself in the doorway. "You want this barn, you go through me." They hesitated. One radioed someone, and seconds later, Vivian's black SUV pulled up. She stepped out with 2 men in suits. "Mike, you're making this harder than it needs to be. We have legal rights to develop this land." "No, you don't," I shot back. "You're forging signatures and trespassing." She smirked. "We file the lien. Pay the balance, or the land defaults." Sarah jumped out of Tom's truck, phone raised. "That lien's being challenged. This is live on Facebook. Say hi to 900 viewers." Vivian's smile wavered. Tom stepped forward. "If you scratch this property, you're all going down for destruction." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "You're playing a losing game, Mike. You can't outspend us or outlawyer us. Give in." I grinned. "Lady, I'm a veteran. I've fought wars. This is just practice." Sheriff Bennett's cruiser rolled up, lights flashing. "Everyone off this land unless your name's Mike Larson," he shouted. Vivian tried to argue, but he cut her off. "State Attorney's Office just called. They're investigating." Touch that barn, and I'll haul you in. Vivian's mouth snapped shut. The workers packed up, and she drove off, her crew trailing like scolded dogs. Tom clapped my shoulder. Too close, Mike. I nodded. They were seconds from turning our life into rubble. That night, Emma brought a bombshell. Jake came through, she said, holding up a USB drive. She plugged it into my laptop, revealing grainy footage from the HOA clubhouse conference room. Vivian sat across from a slick-haired man in a suit labeled as David Klein, attorney. She was furious. He's stubborn, she hissed. He's got media, drones, lawyers, and a daughter who won't shut up online. Klein leaned in. Push harder. File another lien, claim nuisance violations, get code enforcement to issue citations. Bury him in paper, and he'll sell or walk away. Vivian scoffed. The barn's coming down one way or another. Klein smiled. Accidents happen on remote properties. Sarah gasped. Tom stood, fists clenched. Rachel's voice was sharp. This is the smoking gun. Intent to harass, fabricate, and force a handover. Emma nodded. This could be the biggest HOA scandal in history. The next morning, we handed the footage to Sheriff Bennett, who promised to take it to the district attorney. But before anything could happen, Emma published the video online. Caught on tape. HOA leader plots to destroy veterans' property. It went viral in 2 hours. National news picked it up. Veterans groups, property rights advocates, and former HOA victims flooded my ranch's Facebook page with support. One message stood out. You don't fight this alone. We're coming. That afternoon, a caravan of pickups, motorcycles, and SUVs rolled in 30 people, from local ranchers to my old Army buddies to strangers who'd followed the story online. A woman from San Antonio said, "You stood your ground. We're here to hold it with you." By sundown, we built a new steel gate and mounted trail cams in every tree. For the first time in weeks, I felt we might win. But the next morning, a loud bang woke me. I grabbed my shotgun and ran to the porch. A heavy wooden post, ripped from my pasture fence, had been thrown through my porch, splintering the boards. Carved into the wood was one word: leave. The word leave carved into the splintered post stared back at me like a taunt from a nightmare. My hands gripped the shotgun so tightly my knuckles whitened, the morning air sharp in my lungs. Sarah ran up behind me, her voice trembling. Dad, who would do this? Tom arrived moments later, his eyes scanning the tree line like we were back in a war zone. It's them, he growled. They're losing, so they're trying to scare you off. I knelt to inspect the damage. The post had been torn from my pasture fence, nails scattered like shrapnel. This wasn't vandalism, it was a threat meant to hit me where I lived. I checked the drone footage. At 3:07 a.m., a hooded figure, tall and broad-shouldered, dragged the post up my drive. The image was grainy, but the way he moved suggested he'd done this kind of thing before. Sheriff Bennett arrived within 20 minutes, his face darkening as he reviewed the clip. This is criminal intimidation, he said. Tied to the HOA mess, no doubt. But without a clear ID, it's hard to pin. Sarah's voice was firm. We can't let them scare us. Bennett nodded. You're not alone now. People are watching. I'll park a cruiser near your ranch every night. The next few days were eerily quiet. No realtors, no construction crews, no flyers. But the silence felt like the calm before a storm. Rachel, our lawyer, filed a motion to dismiss the fake lien and began building a civil case for trespass, forgery, and attempted theft. The media frenzy grew, with news outlets hammering Silver Pines. HOA board members started resigning, but Vivian held firm, refusing to step down. Rachel warned us, desperate people do reckless things. She was right. On the fourth night after the porch attack, we were eating dinner in the barn, our makeshift war room, when Emma burst in, holding a USB drive. You won't believe what Jake got us, she said, eyes wide. She plugged it into my laptop, revealing security footage from inside the Silver Pines clubhouse. Vivian sat at a conference table, arms crossed, venting to David Klein, the attorney. He's got the media, drones, lawyers, and that daughter posting everything online, she snapped. Klein leaned in. File another lien, claim nuisance violations, get code enforcement involved. Bury him until he cracks. Vivian scoffed. The barn's coming down, one way or another. Klein's smile was chilling. Accidents happen on old ranches. Sarah covered her mouth. Tom's fists clenched. Rachel's voice cut through. This proves intent to harass and defraud. We've got them. Emma grinned. This is HOA scandal history. We handed the footage to Sheriff Bennett, who sent it to the district attorney. Emma published it online with the headline, "Caught on tape. HOA leader plots to destroy veterans' ranch." It exploded, going viral in hours. National news ran it. Veterans groups, property rights activists, and even strangers shared their own HOA horror stories, rallying behind us. One message read, "We're coming to stand with you." That afternoon, a caravan rolled into Hollow Creek pickup trucks, motorcycles, SUVs. Over 30 people, neighbors, ranchers, my old Army buddies, even strangers who'd seen the story online. A woman from Houston said, "You held your ground, Mike. We're here to help." By dusk, we'd reinforced the steel gate, added more trail cams, and put up fresh, no trespassing signs. It felt like a victory, but a strange car pulled up at the edge of my drive just as we finished. Not an HOA vehicle, but a black government SUV. A man in a dark suit stepped out, holding a thin folder. "Mr. Larson," he said calmly. "I'm from the Bureau of Land Zoning and Urban Development." He handed me the folder. My heart sank. Inside was a federal notice. Silver Pines had filed an eminent domain request to seize my land for public recreational purposes tied to community development. Sarah stepped forward. "What does this mean?" The man's answer was ice cold. "The HOA's taken this to Washington. They might win." Silence fell over us. The man drove off, leaving the folder like a ticking bomb. I sat in the barn, head in my hands. Sarah paced. "Dad, this isn't just about us anymore. It's about everyone they've done this to." Emma nodded. "This is federal now. We need hard proof." Rachel turned her laptop toward us. "We have 72 hours to object. We need to prove the signature was forged, the land's not zoned for the HOA, and they acted with intent to deceive. Get Vivian under oath or someone on the inside to flip." That night, I called Jake Miller, the ex-Army security guy at the HOA clubhouse. He answered on the first ring. "Mike, I was waiting for you to call direct. I didn't waste time. I need emails, calls, anything proving Vivian knew this was fraud." He paused. "She's paranoid, now uses a burner phone, locks files in a coded safe. But I know where it is." The next day, Sarah and I drove to the Silver Pines clubhouse, posing as interested buyers to pick up a brochure. Jake disabled the front cameras and distracted the receptionist while Sarah waited in the car, ready to stream live if needed. He led me through a side door to Vivian's office. It smelled of air freshener and ambition. He pointed to a cabinet. Bottom drawer, digital lock. Codes her dog's birthday 0615. I punched it in. The drawer clicked open, revealing files, a voice recorder, and a flash drive labeled SP Phase 1 Confidential. Jake whispered, "Take pictures, don't take anything." I snapped photos of emails with Vivian's signature approving fake annexation requests, memos hinting at bribes to county officials, and a list of nuisance properties marked for foreclosure pressure. The worst was an unsent letter titled, "Get rid of Mike Larson already." I copied the recorder. Vivian's voice played. "Once the lien's settled or he gives up, we tear down the barn. No one will care. It's just one guy on a sad old ranch. When it's gone, we own the view." Back at the ranch, Rachel's eyes lit up. This is the nail in their coffin. She worked overnight, drafting an opposition brief with our photos, transcriptions, drone videos, and leaked documents. By dawn, she filed it with the Bureau and the local court, marked urgent. That afternoon, the news broke. Vivian was arrested, charged with forgery, trespass, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Local TV caught her being led out of the clubhouse in cuffs. It felt like justice, but we weren't done. The next day, the Bureau of Land Zoning held a televised press conference. Their spokesperson announced, due to fraudulent documentation, Silver Pines' eminent domain request is denied. Federal investigators will audit their operations. I stood on my porch that evening, the barn still standing, the gate locked, the land quiet. Sarah hugged me. "We did it, Dad." I shook my head. "No, we all did, Tom. Rachel, Emma, Jake, and everyone who showed up." But Rachel's warning lingered. Desperate people do reckless things. The next morning, I woke to a crash. A brick had been thrown through my living room window, glass scattered across the floor. Scrawled on it in black marker was one word: surrender. The brick lay among the shattered glass on my living room floor, The word surrender scrawled in black marker like a coward's challenge. My pulse thundered as I stood there, shotgun in hand, staring at the wreckage. Sarah ran in, her face pale. "Dad, this is getting dangerous." Tom, who'd heard the crash from his truck outside, stormed through the door, his eyes blazing. "They're not just threatening your land anymore, Mike. They're coming for you." I checked the trail cam footage. At 4:22 a.m., a figure in a dark hoodie lobbed the brick and sprinted back to a pickup truck that peeled out into the darkness. The license plate was too blurry to read, but the message was clear. Silver Pines wasn't backing down, even with Vivian in cuffs and their eminent domain bid dead. Sheriff Bennett arrived within the hour, his face etched with frustration. "This is escalation," he said, bagging the brick as evidence. "I've got a deputy patrolling round the clock now, but you need to stay sharp." Sarah clenched her fists. "They're trying to break us." I nodded, my jaw tight. They picked the wrong fight. Rachel, our lawyer, arrived later that morning, her expression grim but determined. The arrests and the Bureau's ruling hurt them, but they're still playing dirty. "We need to end this for good." She laid out the plan. A civil lawsuit against Silver Pines for trespass, forgery, defamation, and attempted property theft, backed by every piece of evidence we'd gathered: drone footage, leaked emails, the voice recording, and now the brick. "We'll hit them so hard they'll never set foot in Hollow Creek again," she said. Emma, the journalist, was already drafting a follow-up story, weaving in the brick incident to keep the pressure on. "This isn't just about you anymore, Mike," she said. "People across the country are watching. They're fed up with HOAs pulling stunts like this." The online support was overwhelming: veterans groups, property rights advocates, even regular folks who'd been bullied by HOAs sent messages of solidarity. A rancher from Montana wrote, "They tried to take my land too. Keep fighting, Mike. You're our voice." That afternoon, Tom brought over Jake Miller, the ex-Army security guy who'd leaked the HOA's internal files. Jake looked nervous, glancing over his shoulder as he sat at my kitchen table. "Vivian's not the only one calling shots," he said. "There's a higher-up, a developer named Richard Vaughn. He's been bankrolling the expansion and pushing the board to play dirty. Those emails I gave you? They mention him. If you want to bury Silver Pines, you need his paper trail." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Can you get us more?" Jake hesitated. "Vaughn's careful. Uses encrypted emails and meets off-site. But I know where he keeps his laptop in a locked office at the clubhouse. I can get you in, but it's risky." Sarah leaned forward. "We're already dodging bricks, Jake. Risky's our new normal." I nodded. "Let's do it. One last push." The next night, under cover of darkness, Jake led me and Sarah to the Silver Pines clubhouse. Emma stayed behind, monitoring the drone feed in case things went south. Jake disabled the cameras and got us in through a maintenance door. The clubhouse was silent, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and ambition. Jake pointed to a corner office. Vaughn's desk. Locked drawer, codes 1123, his kid's birthday. I punched it in, and the drawer slid open. Inside was a laptop and a folder labeled Hollow Creek Acquisition. I snapped photos of everything. Emails between Vaughn and Vivian outlining plans to neutralize me through liens and intimidation, bank transfers to county officials for expedited permits, and a memo detailing how the Welcome Center would boost Vaughn's real estate portfolio by $12 million. The worst was a draft letter to investors, boasting, "Larson's resistance is a minor hurdle. The ranch will be ours by spring." I copied the laptop's drive onto a USB, my hands steady despite the adrenaline. As we slipped out, a security light flicked on. Jake hissed, "Go." We bolted to the car, Sarah streaming the whole thing live on her phone. Back at the ranch, Rachel reviewed the evidence, her face lighting up. "This isn't just a smoking gun, it's a cannon. Vaughn's done." She filed an amended lawsuit the next morning, naming Vaughn as a co-conspirator and adding fraud and racketeering charges. Emma published the new evidence online. Silver Pines developer exposed in multi-million-dollar land grab scheme. The story hit national headlines by noon. The fallout was swift. Vaughn was arrested the next day, charged with conspiracy and bribery. The remaining Silver Pines board members resigned en masse, and the HOA issued a public apology, canceling all expansion plans. Sheriff Bennett called to say the state attorney general was auditing every HOA in Texas for similar schemes. "You started a reckoning, Mike," he said. But the real victory came a week later. Rachel stood in my barn, holding a court order dismissing the lien and awarding me damages for emotional distress, property damage, and defamation. Silver Pines is bankrupt, she said. They're selling off their assets to pay you. The figure was substantial enough to repair the porch, replace the gate, and ensure Sarah's college fund was secure. I didn't care about the money, though. I cared about the land, the barn, the memories of Ellen that no one could steal. That evening, we held a bonfire in the pasture. Sarah roasted marshmallows, Tom strummed his guitar, and Emma raised a beer to the crowd neighbors, ranchers, and supporters who'd driven hours to celebrate. Jake was there, quieter now, but proud. You did right by a lot of people, Mike, he said. I looked out at the hills, the same ones Ellen and I used to watch at sunset. We all did, I said. This wasn't just my fight. The peace didn't last long, though. 2 days later, a final letter arrived from Silver Pine's liquidated legal team, admitting defeat but warning that other developers might try where we failed. I crumpled it up. Let them try. My land was mine, backed by a community that wouldn't back down. As I stood on my rebuilt porch, the sun dipping low, I thought about what this fight meant. It wasn't just about a ranch, it was about standing up to bullies who think money and power can crush a man's life. It was about the truth, the kind that burns brighter when people stand together. I looked at Sarah, who was setting up a new trail cam. You think they'll ever learn? She asked. I smiled. They'll learn when enough of us fight back. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you do if someone tried to take your home, your land, your memories without your consent? Have you ever faced bullies like Silver Pines, whether it's an HOA, a corporation, or someone else abusing their power? Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you're from and where you stand on fighting injustice, even when it gets violent or personal. Your voice matters, and together, we can keep shining a light on stories like this.